Joe, if you're new here, my name is Mitchell. In today's episode, I'll be discussing about fear of being alone. So I do these YouTube lives every Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. Eastern time, Saturdays at 12 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time. And if you guys do find this video content of value, please show your appreciation by hitting that like, share, and let your friends know. Let your friends know everybody could benefit from this. If you already know it, it's okay too, because sometimes we need reminding as much as we need educating. Okay. And so today, I actually threw in an extra slide for you guys too. So I'll be talking about a recap, and now I'll have about 5 slides. I have 5 slides. So the first one will be my recap, which is happiness must come from you first. And that it's correlated, directly correlated to why you might fear being alone, is because you're not happy within yourself, right? So that will be my first recap. And then my first slide will be get to a happy place first. So I want to give a shout out to Coach Corey Wayne. So if you're watching this, one day you'll be watching this. And yeah, shout out to Coach Corey Wayne, because a lot of this came from him. And if you guys are interested, please check him out. He's on YouTube. He's all over different platforms. So go check him out. And then second slide will be begin with the observation, right? Let's begin with the observation. And then, there's a theory that I have too as well, which is like social media and distractions, stuff like that. And face the fear of being alone, right? So a lot of it is to understand, like, how can I let go and how can I get to the happy place? Because you can't be in a happy place if there's so much resistance going on in your life, right? So it's learning how to let go, right? Talked about that a lot. And codependency, it's like, well, I need someone to be happy, or I need something to be happy, right? So that all stems from why you might fear being alone. And so today, fear being alone, let's start with the recap. Recap episode is on happiness must come from you first. The slide is on no one's coming to save you. So that's a reality that we have to understand. No one's coming to save us. No one is going to save you. And then 80% of them don't care, and 20% of them are glad that you have those problems, because a lot of it is, most people, they feed off of that type of energy that you have, right? They feed off that misery. It's like, oh, you're miserable? That's good, because it makes me feel a little bit better about myself, right? Which is why, most people don't care, and 20% of them is glad that you have it, right? And so for them seeing you in a lesser position, it makes them feel better about themselves. Just like the whole Jerry Springer effect, right? You watch shows about people that's miserable. You're like, I don't really need to do anything about myself. I'm perfectly fine. Look at them. They suck. We're in a much better position. But then it keeps you stagnant. It doesn't really keep you moving forward. So how do you keep moving forward? All right. So it also helps to justify how they don't need to change, right? But the moment you start becoming better, there's a lot of things that could happen. People start resenting you. They start telling you different things like, oh, who do you think you are? You think you're better than everybody. But in reality, that's how they view themselves, right? Whether their view is accurate or not. And so they will start saying things based on how they feel about themselves. Okay, so don't let that change you if you are persistent on becoming a better version of yourself, because like attracts like, and you have to become the person you want to attract. And then that person that comes in will be just another side effect about, hey, you know what, I'm not looking for a relationship, but you know what, just because you're so happy, you're authentic to yourself, you're genuinely happy, and you're not faking the smile, right? People want to be around that. It's good energy. Who doesn't want to be around good company, right? Especially if you can make them feel good about themselves, because everyone's favorite topic is about who? About themselves. All right. So now, moving on with the recap. Helping yourself means working towards a collaborative state, right? Now, it's really important to understand where you vibrate, or where your energy level is coming from, right? So if you're coming from a place where you're always being like competitive, like, oh, I need to be better than this and whatever, then you're really coming from a very low energy, low vibration state, where it's very me energy, like me. I need more, so you keep taking, right? And then you start. Then let's just say you accidentally, or you bump a you bump into someone that's more in this collaborative state, but all you want to do is take, and then eventually you're going to repel each other. And when you repel each other, you're like, see, everyone leaves, right? Then it starts becoming this self-fulfilling prophecy. We don't want that. We don't want that. So you must participate in your own rescue, right? No one's coming to save you, and you got to get there yourself first. So let me help you with that. Okay. So helping yourself means working towards a collaborative state. The moment where you start comparing other people's fortune and what you're lacking is the moment you start playing the victim, right? It's like the oh me, why does everything happen to me, right? People with victim mentality, it usually comes from past traumas. Past traumas meaning like there's an area of your life when you were a child, and it starts replaying it in your head like, oh, like things just happened to me, right? And it's always this, I need help, people need to help me. Like no one's coming to save you. No one's coming to save you. And that's, you can ignore that, but you can't ignore the consequences, right? Because that's reality. No one's going to save you. You have to be willing to do it yourself, right? So playing that victim mentality, it doesn't get you anywhere. It doesn't, okay? And consciously you start seeking validation, and you want to get help from others. And I think it's important to ask for help, but ultimately you have to do it on your own, okay? Also, when you're in this kind of victim mentality type of state, you truly think life is against you. You feel stuck in life, and you start approaching things in a very negative attitude, right? Like, and then who's going to want to be around that? No one's going to enjoy that unless that person is miserable too, right? And then you just vibrate because you're at that same energy level, right? It's like, yeah, you know what, that also sucks too. Yeah. How many people do you know that vibrates, don't get any ideas, that resonates with that same level of energy where like they both miserable, and they're like, yeah, and they're like, they feed off of that, right? So they feed off of that emotional, they need that so that they can feel better about themselves, right? And then they that's all they talk about, and they're like, yeah, you know what, speaking with you makes me feel a lot better. Yeah, but it doesn't really solve anything if you think about it. What does it solve? Talking about each other's miseries on how, oh, your problem isn't worse than mine. My problem's like this. And there's, or it's like, yeah, our same problems. Yeah, I get you. Hey, what makes a relationship works are things in common. You guys could be both miserable people, and that can actually work. Now, does it necessarily mean it's going to work in a relationship? Probably not, because you're both miserable, right? So now moving on. So you feel stuck in life, and you approach things with a negative attitude. You feel attacked when someone tries to offer helpful feedback because you're in this victim state. Like, oh, you're just talking shit about me, right? In reality, that's not what they're trying to do. Or maybe they are, right? But you got to spot that out, right? Now, feeling bad for yourself gives you a sense of relief or pleasure. That's a possibility. Some people feel that way. It's like, oh wow, like, oh, poor me energy, poor me. Things happen to me. Do you want to know what happened? Right? Now, it's okay to talk about it. I think it's very important to talk about it, especially with someone that you could depend on, someone that will not share that advice to other people, right? Like someone that you could trust. And I think that's important to kind of vent that out. Venting it out and then finding a solution. That's the key, right? Because finding a solution requires self-reflection. It means that, hey, what is wrong? I need to find out, right? But talking to you or to this person, this confidant, will help you get into a better place. Well, hopefully. Okay? So you attract people who blame other and complain about their lives, right? That's the victim mentality, and it's difficult for you to examine yourself and make changes because you're in this victim state. You're not going to try to seek for better help. You just come from a place where I need to express how I feel without actually taking an action step towards a solution. Now, get to a happy place first. So that's going to be the first slide, right? And this slide, I want to dedicate the slide to Coach Corey Wayne. So, he helped me a lot, and I think this is very, very helpful. So, shout out to him. So, Coach Corey Wayne, he says, when you learn to love your own company, you no longer give your time away to people who takes it for granted, right? Now, so here's the thing. If you're not happy with yourself, you won't be good company to others. Because here's the thing, life fills voids. So if you're in a very unhappy place, it's going to fill that little spot, right? You're creating that spot for another unhappy person to come into your life. So then when that person comes into your life, now you're just talking about how everything sucks. It doesn't really get you anywhere, right? Now, let's just say you got to a happy place. And so you start attracting people with, higher vibrations, if you will, with, that type of energy. And then you're creating this healthy, happy place for another happy person to come into your life. And once they come in, they're gonna be like, oh wow, like dude, we resonate well with each other. We have good chemistry, right? We speak kind of like the same language, and we tend to understand each other a little bit more. And so that's what happens. Life fills voids. You have to create a space in your life for the right person to come in. If you're not happy now, you're gonna create. You're not going to create a happy space for another happy person to come into your life. To your life, like attracts like. So, here's an example. When I was coming from a place and I didn't really know too much, and this is my example, right? I used to be around people that didn't really enjoy my company. They didn't care. They was like, oh, if Mitchell's there, yeah, right? And so that's why I talked about go where you're celebrated, not where you tolerate it. And I was in a place where someone was like, if Mitchell comes, Mitchell comes. Or, yeah, he's here, is whatever, leave him. And so I was being tolerated. I wasn't even being celebrated, right? And it's like, I stayed there because I felt like, I wanted to be happy, right? Because it sucked being at home. So let me go to this party that no one really gives a shit about me, right? And then it really came, like, it actually really kind of, it rung a bell in my head. I'm like, I'm not even happy at home. So I'm going here and I'm being tolerated. And now that I'm being tolerated, I'm just kind of like, well, it's better than being at home because home sucks. Well, over there doesn't make it any better. And then it wasn't until I start realizing like certain things that I really do enjoy about myself, right? I had to get to a happy place first. And so I started doing things that I really enjoy, right? Which is I love dancing. I love looking at dance videos, right? It started with that. I love video games. So I started playing video games. I had a good, good friends. I made a lot of good friends from there too. And then of course, like little by little, like life started happening. And now I'm like, you know what? My relationship kind of sucks. Is it because I suck with other people? Yeah, it was. Mitchell didn't know. So what you don't know, right? And so I started learning a little bit more about people, and knowing that I had like the secret book to how to become or how to be human, which is how to win friends and influence people. So read that book if you haven't read it. And I started understanding like what makes people want to be around you too, right? And it's like they enjoy your company by talking about them. What is their favorite topic? Everyone's favorite topic is about themselves. And it started from there, and it started like, I guess you could say it started escalating to a place where I'm like, I love this. I love how I could contribute to a certain, to certain things. Like I could share this with you because I know a little bit something, and then now you guys can have it too, right? And I love being alone because it means that I get to grow from it, whether it's from dancing, maybe playing video games, right, or understanding people. And it to a point where I only want to be alone unless I'm with good company, right? And don't get me wrong, I love being around good company, okay? I also love being alone. So it's being great at two different places. Okay. So, but that's where it was, it came from a place where like people didn't even want to be around me. People didn't like, they didn't They were like, man, whatever. Mitchell was like this, Mitchell's like that. Just leave him alone, right? Until I started realizing. But it took a lot of self-reflection. Okay, it took a lot of self-reflection. And so now the same thing goes for relationships, right? If you're in a relationship and you argue with someone, right? And if you're not in a happy place first, I get it. If you're in an argument, because hey, it does happen, right? You try to make it happen. Men who understands women don't argue with them. But let's just say you do, and you had an argument, right? Or you have a disagreement and that person doesn't agree, right? So you get to this place. Are you happy even before you got into the relationship? Were you, right? Because otherwise, then it's going to be very difficult for you to get out of that unhappy place, because now you had this argument. And now that you had this argument, you're not going to find a place of how do I get back to a place where I could communicate with this person? How do I communicate with this person? Now, that's assuming that you attracted or you're with this person that knows how to communicate, right? But things start spiraling down when because like attracts like. Life fills voids. So then when you attract that shitty person into your life and they don't communicate well, and now you have an argument, well, guess what? Do you feel like you're really going to have a solution towards that? No, because it's all about this me energy. Me. How do I feel, right? And you got, some of you guys that's already familiar with this work is if you're at a place in a relationship and you're too worried about how you feel, you're not really thinking about the relationship. You're thinking about yourself. And when you start thinking about yourself, that's not a relationship. It's not a relationship, because in a relationship it's about love, right? Love is about giving. Love is an act. It's about giving it to someone that appreciates and values your effort, right? So if you're at this place and that person is only tolerating you, where do you think your sense of appreciation is going to be? It's going to be very difficult for you to keep on giving to somebody that doesn't appreciate you, right? So you got this vicious cycle going around, but it all starts from not knowing who you were, right? And that's where it all comes from. Happiness must come from you first. And if you think happiness, right? If you think happiness is on what you get, then happiness becomes this moving target, right? If I finally get this Charizard, then I'll be happy. If I get the most rarest card, then I'll be happy. If I get this girl of my dreams, then I'll be happy, or this car or whatever. So then it becomes a moving target. It becomes a moving target. And then happiness is dependent on a certain circumstance. It becomes this certain circumstance, right? And then so now you have the story that you're telling yourself, and you believe that I won't be happy until I get it, right? Focus on a place where you can enjoy yourself wherever you're at. That's where true happiness comes from. And happiness, now, the reason why I'm talking about happiness is because you ever notice even today's topic is about fear of being alone. Think about it. If your focus is on being happy, you're playing to win, right? People that's like, oh, fearing, oh, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of this. Your focus is on being afraid. And what you fear, you attract. What you look at or face, it disappears, right? So that's why you must be at a happy place first before you get anybody in your life. And having that person come into your life will be a side effect. Whether it's a friend, whether it's an intimate relationship, those are side effects. It just happens. Why? Because you just give out all this good energy, right? Am I right? Press 1 if y'all agree. Press 1 if y'all agree. And let me know who's here, because I can't see it, right? So anyways, let's talk about observation, right? It begins with observation, right? Because one of the, there's 6 basic human needs, and this came from Tony Robbins. 6 basic human needs. It's love and connection. There's variety. There's significance, certainty. There's growth, and there's contribution, right? So do you have these? Do you have these 6 basic human needs? Where does it fall short, right? Do you have love and connection? Well, if you don't, then there must be an area or a subcategory to that. Like, well, why can't I attract love right? Why does it seem to always slip away or whatever, right? Maybe it's something that you're doing, right? So understand, self reflect. That's where it comes from. That's how you operate from a better place, from a place of strength. Variety. Do you have things that are different, right? Because we can't just do the same thing over and over and over and over and over. We need variety. That's what we need. We need significance, the sense of importance, right? Part of it came from that book too, How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's significance. We all want to feel important, right? But if you're not doing anything and you're not sharing anything, how do you even feel important if no one cares about what you do, right? So you got to do something that's valued, right? It's what you bring to the market. That's how it's valuable. You need certainty, right? Now, where does certainty come from? It comes from knowing that you could do it, right? But if you don't do it, how do you have confidence? So it comes from there, right? Now, taking action breeds confidence and courage. Inaction breeds fear and doubt. And what you fear, you attract. So you see, it's a vicious cycle, right? Growth. We need to grow, right? So that's why it's like, you ever been at a place where you kind of like, it's boring, right? Do you really want to be at a place where you're like, I'm just doing this for a paycheck, pays me well. You're not growing though. You're like, it's boring. I get it. I could do it. No, nobody wants to be at a place where they're bored. Okay, so having growth, whatever it is, an area of your life, maybe it's a job, but you're working towards something when you go back home, right? You have a sense of growth, at least for yourself, and contribution. Now, here's the statistics where it's, according to this 2017 survey, 42% of millennials, which is, people from that's born in 1981 to 1996, ranges, I think, from the ages of 26 and 41 right now, right? Millennials. Now, women are more afraid of loneliness than cancer diagnosed, right? They're more afraid. Now, if loneliness is defined by the amount of meaningful connections you have with other people and yourself, how do we solve this problem, right? And it solves by, you must get to a happy place first. Okay. Still in the age bracket. There you go. You're a millennial. You have to get to a happy place first, right? Where is an area of your life that it doesn't feel fulfilled? It's just something that you're not doing, something that you're lacking, something that's not giving you that confidence to be able to do it, right? Now here's another statistics. Whereas 60% of married people express they feel lonely regularly. That's what they feel, right? Now, if you feel lonely, it means that connection that you have with that person that you married with, it means that there's no quality, right? If there's no quality, what happens? It means that if you're going to consistently feel like you're not being heard or understood, that's why it's so important that, if you're a guy, you must date and court your lady. If you don't, some other man will. And so you have to, if you're in a relationship, there's a sense of responsibility. It doesn't mean that just because you got them, you don't have to do anything. There's so much more. If anything, there's so much more that you have to do, that you got to stay on top of. But here's the thing. We all get complacent, but it's about not being so deep in that hole of complacency where it's so comfortable where that's all you operate from. It's like, she's there. She won't leave. Like, no, she probably will. And she most likely will, because, well, I don't remember the statistics. Was it like 50 to 60% of people that like have divorces? I don't know. I gotta look that up again. But there's a lot of divorces, right? And that's just only accounting people that's in a marriage. How about people that breaks up? A lot of people break up, right? Now, so are you dependent on another for your happiness? Because if you are, then, happiness becomes this moving target. And of course, if you are, what's going to happen is eventually, once you feel like you got that person or that thing and the excitement goes down, you realize that happiness is not from that person. And once it's not from that person or that thing, you lose excitement. So you're less enthusiastic. So then you start putting out this low level energy and just like, it's whatever. And then what happens? they leave, right? And then you start telling yourself, well, everybody always leaves. Then it starts becoming this self-fulfilling prophecy. And then you're like, well, I don't want to be alone. I don't want to be, I'm afraid of being alone. Of course, you're going to be fearful of being alone because everything that you did sucked. It means that you have to become better because no one's coming to save you. You have to save yourself. You can save yourself a lot of time by giving yourself a lot of information, right? Educating yourself. And that will set you free. Okay. Now, also, it's also important that to know that, what are you constantly telling yourself? What is your internal dialogue, right? Your internal dialogue reflects on who you are, and that's your character, and character is destiny. So whatever you're telling yourself, that's the story that you believe in, right? And you believe in that, and then when you talk to other people, that's what they're going to sense. They're going to sense that, like, oh, this person is always coming from this low energy level state, and life fills voids. And so if you're in a low energy level state, you're going to fill that, you're going to create that space for this low energy level person to come into your life. And then you guys will be both miserable people together. Okay. So what you focus on expands, and what you fear you attract, right? So what are you really focusing on? Connie, what's up? Hello, hello. Glad to have you here. All right. So let's start. So let's start by defining the relationship we have with loneliness. What does it mean to you when you are lonely? Are you telling yourself like, I'm not worthy? What are you telling yourself? Because I'm alone, but I love being alone, right? So I guess, it's like, oh, that person looks lonely. It's like, no, actually Mitchell is really happy because if I am alone, I got time. It's like this. In a relationship, right? If she goes, hi, I'm gonna, like, hey baby, I'm just gonna be, what, Kiki, like, we're using Kiki. Kiki be like, well, I'm gonna go out with my friends. I'm like, yes. I get to do more things on my own. Not that I, not the yes saying like she smothers me, but yes, like now I got my own time, right? But, people that vibrates in a low energy level, they're gonna be like, if Kiki be like, hey, I'm gonna go out with my girls, I'm gonna have some fun, right? Instead of saying, baby or Kiki, go have fun, it's like, who you going with? Can I trust them? It starts from, and then like it's coming from this low energy, like you don't even trust her. Why the hell you with her? Why? Because deep down you don't believe that you're good enough for that person. So then you're trying to hold on to this person by forcing things, by forcing those questions, right? And that's needy energy, right? People sense desperate energy, and once you start sensing that, it's like, yo, you don't really believe in yourself. And when you don't believe in yourself, what makes them want to believe in you, right? So I agree with you about the growth, and character starts with bettering yourself first, such as investing into yourself. Yes, by investing in yourself, by asking yourself quality questions, because quality of your life is in direct proportion to the quality of the questions that you consistently ask yourself. Okay, if you ask yourself shitty questions, then yeah, you're going to have shitty answers. Okay, so let's start by defining the relationship you have with loneliness, right? And are you defining it based off the relationship you have with the past? So a lot of people, they like to reflect on their past, right? And it's important. It's important because what is the relationship you have with loneliness? And is it being defined based off the relationship you have with your past? So here's an example. If, part of your past, if all your relationships like they always end, and they always end because of this, right? No one will ever like me because this is who I am. I'm just a shitty person, or or maybe you're a cheater, right? People with low integrity, right? It's like, well, are you going to change that? Is that what you want? Or do you want to operate from a place where, there are some people that don't ever want to be in a serious relationship, and all they want to do is just go sleep around, right? Hey, by all means, that's your life. You do what you want to do, right? To me, at least me personally, I like to have a meaningful relationship with that person that I care about, that I love. To me, that's important. Okay. And your life is your life. You get to live the way you like it, right? So now, were you told that you will never be good enough, right? So if that's the relationship that you had with yourself in the past, and that's what you consistently tell yourself, and that you're not good enough, that you would never amount to anything, or someone else is telling you and you believe that, right? Those are opinions. Those are not facts. So, but then if you start believing in other people's opinions, you start telling yourself like these are facts, and that's usually not the case, right? It's getting hot. So it's the relationship. What was the relationship you have, right? Is the fear of being alone in relation with the experience of loss, right? How many relationships did you have that seems to end the same way, right? For example, it's like the negative attitude towards life, certain circumstances, like are you argumentative? Like those are like the low energy level type of me energy type of people, right? Because now loneliness is correlated to how well we are connected with ourselves and other people. So let's just say you're not very well connected with other people, right? You just socially awkward, you don't know how to act. Well, I suggest you practice, be out there, go out with other people. And then also, when you go back home, reflect on yourself and be like, well, how can I become a little bit more likable? And here's a great way to start: be authentic to yourself. And then you start attracting the people that accepts you for who you are. And then when they start accepting you, ask yourself, are they excited to see you? Or are they celebrating when they're seeing you, or are they tolerating you, right? Same example, people were tolerating me. I no longer want to be around those people. I'm no longer at that type of place in my life, so I'm in a much better place, right? Now, also, this is my theory. I don't think I'm the only person that thought of this. I'm pretty sure other people have spoken about it, but here's my theory on social media and distractions, right? So this is what theory, I wrote it down, so here it is. The theory is, social media has, it played this big role of, being able to instantly access another person immediately. And because you're able to immediately access the other person, and let's just say that person responds to you really quickly, right? Then at some level, even if you don't expect it, you kind of expect it, right? And you're like, well, that person usually responds right away. And then so you start setting these expectations of people responding to you immediately, and that's not how the human brain was functioned before, right? Unless you're with that person. So now you feel this need of like, I need this, so you lack patience. And when you lack patience, because this person that you set these expectations, that with the instant access, then patience is what kills the excitement. And it's like it becomes this needy type of energy, and like nobody wants to be around someone that's needy, that's clingy, or doesn't trust that person, right? Like Kiki, if she were to ask me like, oh, yeah, I'm going out with my girls, baby, have fun, baby, have fun. Because the reason why you with that person, you with Kiki, is because I know that she will always come back to me. I know that she won't do anything shady behind my back, because I trust her, because I trust in myself. Now, if that's the person that betrays my trust, now I have no control over that, and she betrays my trust, I still know that I could attract the right person in my life. And if she decides that she wants to do something like that, by all means, that's her choice. I don't have to stay in that relationship. But it's being grounded and knowing where you stand in your own mind, right? Physically, mentally, and spiritually too. Like, I know I'm grounded. Why the hell would she ever want to leave someone great that knows what they want, that goes after what they want? That's not like a cocky dickhead, you know what I mean? Right? They just know exactly what they want. So it's like, it's more like, I know I'm in good hands with myself. That sounded weird, but y'all know what I mean, right? Let's see. I'm good. I hope you're well as well. Okay. But anyways, let's move on. So now with the social media and distractions, you set expectations, and then you become impatient, and that's where Mitchell ranted on. And also, life isn't where you want it to be. we see other people because of social media, right? It's distractions, but we start seeing other people, how good their lives are, right? And don't get me wrong, there's also other things like, bad things happening to other people. That's like the news, right? But then, social media is about portraying how good your life is majority of the time, right? I mean, sometimes you still see like people being upset and like this is what happened and stuff. Like, I get it, but majority of the time you see people talking about like, oh, this is where I'm at, this is how I'm enjoying myself, right? And then you start comparing yourself to other people. And when you compare yourself to other people, it becomes, when you comparison is the death of joy, right? It just takes it away. It's like, oh, I want to be there. So it's like the fear of missing out and all this. It's like, no, I don't have that. If if you weren't invited, that's fine, right? If someone didn't invite me to that, I'm not gonna be upset. I'm gonna be like, dude, I'm gonna be so happy because I just finally got time to read, I don't know, X amount of pages of this book or X amount of chapters in this book, because I love learning. I love growth. I love being around my own company, right? The best relationship you could ever have is a relationship you have with yourself. So now, comparison being the death of joy, we start spiraling down, okay? And this put us in a very low level, low vibration state. And you can't give what you don't have, and you don't have a lot of true excitement in your life, right? And all the excitement is from other people or other things that you're doing, right? So the moment that someone that comes into your life that gives you some energy, or that kind of lifts you up a little bit, you might display a lot of low energy level um behaviors, right? You start talking about yourself, you start becoming like this needy, clingy, oh, I need me, the me energy, right? And then you're in this very competitive state, like, oh, this me, instead of collaborative is more like, yo, hey, how you're doing. Oh, okay, well, and then you guys could share good things with each other, right? And you're both happy with each other. But instead, you're more like me energy. This is what's happened. You need to listen to me because my life sucks, right? It's like, do you really want to be around that person that always talks about themselves? Do you know someone that always talks about themselves? Right? You let me know. Okay? How much do you like being around them? Right? How much? You let me know. Okay, so now we fall into this rabbit hole of no one likes me, no one really wants to be around me, right? Because you're putting out all these desperate energies, and now my life isn't where I want it to be. So then you start yielding to life's simple, like, basic impulses, and then you start indulging into this lowest form of pleasure. And that was the quote that came from Fyodor Dostoevsky, right? I talked about it, and it's not by lying to people and lying to yourself. And it's just not about lying, but it's not telling yourself the truth. It's not telling yourself the truth. And maybe you're just oblivious to the truth. And just because you don't know it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Because ignorance at this point is not bliss, because you don't know it. You don't know how to work. You don't know how to work from that place, right? And then, I mean, you could do it trial and error, but there's plenty of people that's already done it. So instead of falling into that place where, like, I have to do it trial and error, there are people that done it already. So success leaves clues. Okay, so let's see. Okay, I got two more. I'm gonna take a sip though. How are you guys? How are you? Okay, I agree with you, Mitchell, about the social media. Even with the friendship, that this happens, and the whole responding at a certain time, right? Like, who doesn't, right? And then when you don't get the way that you want it, or worse, you don't get the response that you want, you start being upset, right? And it's because they said, and it's like, you're emotionally depleted, you have no emotional resilience, you just get upset. It's like, okay, don't get me wrong, I get upset when I hear something that I don't like, but it doesn't mean I act out of like impatience and I start blowing up out of frustration. It's like, hey, let me take a step back, right? Because let's just say, like, like in that relationship example where you had an argument, right? If you came from a place of being happy first before you got into a relationship, that you will be able to get back into the conversation, even though you guys had this argument, you could step back. You could take a step back and you'd be like, you know what? Right now is not a good time for me to talk. Let me get back to it, because here's why. I know that I could always communicate with this person. We just need a little bit more time. And that person is okay with it. It's just that we need a little bit of time. Sometimes we need time away from each other, right? That's actually how attraction builds too. It's being able to do your own thing. That's why it's so important that guys, masculine men, they need to have a purpose, a drive, a mission, a focus. They need that. They need that so that they're not bombarding her with so many things and being clingy, right? It's very important. All right. Okay. Facing fear, right? Or face the fear of being alone. You got to face it, right? Because most people, they fear being alone, right? And being alone means the relationship you have with yourself and other people too, right? So the quality of life is in direct proportion to the quality of the questions you consistently ask yourself. So what are you asking yourself, right? What do you fear? What do you consistently ask yourself, right? What you fear are your thoughts, and those are not facts. So remember that, right? Look at reality as it is, not better nor worse. What is the relationship you have with yourself? Do you find yourself, your life worth living? Is this like, do you get excited about life? Do you get up and be like, damn, okay, today's another day. I get to do this 1%, right? Just 1% a day, right? Getting better. Progress, right? Growth. What is your attitude towards life? Do you find your life exciting, or do you find it kind of like, it is what it is, right? Yeah. Be careful with those people too. It is what it is. It is what it is, right? And the reason why I say that is because it's like, I'm not saying that you can't say that, but it's like, if they constantly saying that it is what it is, are they giving themselves options to have applicable actions so that you don't operate from it is what it is. And there are things that you can't control, and I understand that, but there are certain things that you can control, like the person that you want to be with, right? Those are very important. The job that you work at, right? The career choice that you have, right? Being patient is important, and embracing loneliness we do have. Yeah, you have to, because loneliness it's an emotion. It doesn't mean that you ignore that emotion, because ignoring that emotion means that you're ignoring part of yourself. And when you understand that, hey, you know what, I am lonely right now. Why am I lonely? I'm lonely because I don't really have anything going on for myself. Okay, well, what do you like? What do you enjoy? What do you love? Write those down, and then you start being at a place where you're trying to find a place where you enjoy your own company, being alone. And when you love being alone, you don't you operate from a place of that collaborative state where it's like, yeah, come join me, let's all have some fun together, versus like, oh, I gotta make sure that this person, right, like that low energy level. And it's so important. Like, I don't know how to stress it enough. Like, you have to come from a happy place first. And if you're constantly focusing on, I need to find somebody, I need to find that person in my life to be happy, like I want somebody, then the question is, are you codependent? Like, does your happiness come from another person, right? Because if you're operating from that, like, let's just say you do get with that person and the excitement goes down, that person is not going to be excited to be around you, nor will you feel excited to be around them, right? Then it's like you're only focusing on yourself, and if you're focusing on yourself, you're not focusing on a relationship. Let's see. I think it's okay to fear, but it isn't okay to let fear make us feel unmotivated, uncomfortable situation. Fear will always be there, so it's one of those things that it won't disappear, but it's by consistently looking and facing that fear that is happening, so that you could constantly move forward and move towards that, right? Moving forward in a direction. Excuse me, it's kombucha. All right, let's see. But you can turn that fear into a positive thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. With the whole, cup half full, half empty, right? Like, where do you operate from? I know, I know, facing fear sometimes in case basis on how a person handle his or her fear. Yeah, like if your fear is like to talk to a stranger, well, start small, right? Hey, excuse me, do you know what time it is? I really like your glasses, or that's a really nice dress. It's my favorite color, or whatever, right? Like, talk to people. No one could turn down a compliment, okay? And if they do and they give you a bad sour attitude, that is not that doesn't reflect you. You're not doing anything wrong, right? Right? If I said, let's just say I said to a girl, you're like, "Yeah, that's a really nice pretty dress," right? And she's like, "Oh," right? I'm like, "Okay, hope you have a good day." Right? Have a good day. I'm not going to be distressed about it. I'm not going to be like, "Well, first thing that comes into my mind is like, what's her attitude about?" But at the same time, I have to realize that I have no control over how she feels. Maybe she had a bad day. I don't know that, right? People are allowed to have bad days, and I don't know that. And so that's why it is always better to come from a better, high vibration, high energy level state. It is always better, okay? Because people are attracted to that. Anyways, let's see. I asked, do you find yourself your life worth living? What is your attitude towards life? Is it exciting or depressing? Like those are really good questions to ask yourself. What is that audit, right? Like where like remember when I said think back. So what's today's date? Today is Tuesday, right? Let's just say I want you guys to think back to last Monday. What were majority of your feelings and emotions? What were they? Were they more exciting? Were they happy? Or is it more like, whatever, it is what it is, kind of, right? Or yeah, what is it? I think that's a very important question to ask, because then you can actually audit yourself to a point where it's like, well, majority of my week felt like I was coming from a place of being upset, or because things didn't go my way, right? And it's like, well, those are your thoughts, right? Those are not facts, right? So how do I change that? Well, by changing how you view things, right? And how you see things. And I love the quote from Jim Rohn: when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, right? And what was the other quote? It was, you see with your eyes, you see things. You see with your mind, you see answers. And it depends on how you see things. Do you see the cup half full? Do you see a cup half empty? Now, if you see it half full, okay, that's fine. Are you operating from that place authentically, or are you just kind of tricking yourself, saying like, "Oh yeah, this is how I was taught, like this is how I'm supposed to." Well, how do you get to that authentic place? It's by reflecting into yourself. What are things that are missing, right? So these are, little pockets and little areas of your life that needs to be patched, or understood, so that you could let go of some of that resistance, so that you could go move forward at a much great effect quicker pace. So those are really good, questions to ask yourself. Give yourself an audit. Where do you operate from? How do you feel the past week? Those are very important, right? And it's easy to forget. It's easy to forget about those. So, and also ask yourself, what caused, here's an example. Ask yourself, like, if you're in that position and maybe, you guys broke up or whatever, right? Like, ask yourself, like, what caused them to leave? Was it because we didn't communicate well? Well, okay, that person cheated. Okay, well, let's just say that person cheated on you, okay? Whoever you're with, that person cheated on you. Yes, it's their fault, right? But you could still ask yourself, like, well, what were some of the things that I did that was a catalyst to make that his or her, whoever you with, that person cheat on me? Because, if they were gonna cheat on you, they're gonna cheat on you regardless, right? But based off how you act, you could be a catalyst to whether the speediness of that person cheated on you, right? Like, that's important too. Like, what were some of the things that I could have done differently? That, not to say that that person wasn't going to cheat on you, but really ask yourself, like, okay, what could have held that back from cheating on me quicker? Now, I'm not saying you still find a cheater. I'm saying that, like, well, then that's a good audit to some of your actions. Well, maybe maybe he or she would have cheated on me, not as quick if I did not yell, right? If I was not so frustrated all the time, right? It doesn't mean that that person's not going to be a cheater. They still might cheat on you, but it gives you, it allows yourself to reflect. So it doesn't stop there. It's important, and that's actually one of the things that I did when I was what, not 13, like when I was 15 to 17, right? I was in a relationship. Things didn't go the way I wanted to, right? And it's okay, right? I learned from it. But, no matter what that person did to me, I still always ask myself, and I don't know where it came from. Okay. I'm not sure. I'm still trying to figure that out. But I did ask myself, I was like, well, where did it, like, how could I have become better? What were some of the things that I could have done differently? Like, well, I got jealous before. I got jealous a lot. Well, is jealousy wrong? No, I don't think jealousy is not wrong. It's an emotion. Don't ignore that. But at the same time, how do you contain that where it doesn't come from outbursts, but it's more like reasoning. It's like, okay, this person, I'm feeling this emotion. I'm feeling jealous, but how do I come from a place of strength when it's because of jealousy? Like, is it really because of me having insecurities? Okay, well, if I'm jealous because I'm insecure, what am I insecure about? So, following the trail of whys. All important questions. All important questions. Okay. So let's see. So the fear of being alone is, does it feel like, and if you just got a relationship, or you just been alone for a while, right? Like, it's it's important to kind of ask yourself too, like, does it feel like I won't ever get back that feeling of being loved, right? If you feel that way, it's probably because you feel insecure about yourself, because you don't think you are capable of finding that again. And then you start telling yourself this, and you fear what you fear you attract, and so that thing starts to happen again. And it's like, you don't how do you stop that self-fulfilling prophecy from happening again? By changing the way you look at things, right? That's how you do it. And a good example was from Simon Sinek, which was like, remember when I was telling you guys, instead of telling your kid or whatever, don't eat on the bed, just go eat on the table. Go over there, go eat on the table, right? It's more direct. That's more your focus, right? Instead of focusing on the don'ts, it's like, just focus on the things you need to do, right? Go eat on the table, right? Now, if they're eating on the bed, then you'd be like, it's go eat on the table. Have some authority too, right? Take some authority back into your own life. Control your own life. Control the controllables. Let's see. So yeah, does it feel like I won't ever be back in love again? Like, well, we were dating for so many years, it's like, I don't know if I will ever get back into that sense of feeling love. I don't feel like I'm gonna find that person that loves me as much as that person did. Those are real questions. I asked myself that question too, and I was like, no. Why? Because I fucking love myself. I love being where I'm at. I love how I could just, I don't need another person to make me happy. But if that person comes into my life and that I'm happy with that person, absolutely. That person will be an addition to my life, right? That person does not complete me. We are both complete people sharing each other's completeness. Let's see. So I hope that makes a lot of sense to you guys, right? Happiness must come from you first. That way that you don't fear that you don't have that fear of being alone, because it's going to happen. Like, that with your energy level or whatever, you're going to attract a good person into your life. And you got to believe that too. Like, authentically, genuinely. Like, I know I will. And doesn't mean you won't have bad days. It's still going to happen, but it means that I know I'm capable of doing it. Right now it's not the time, so you don't have that impatience. You are patient, and it's like, yeah, you know what? But in the meantime, I'm gonna love being alone. I'm gonna love having my own company, and when I'm around certain people, we have a great time too, right? So, let's see. Um, I know this is not as related, but since it's a bullet point, I want to talk about it, which is, If you experience loss, whether it's from a breakup or like losing a job or whatever, right? Best thing you can do is self-reflect, okay? Self-reflect on that. Reflect on that. Ask yourself quality questions, right? Or ask yourself questions if you don't know where to start. Ask yourself. Just start asking yourself questions. I don't feel like people don't spend enough time with their own thoughts, right? And that's why I'm talking about social media and distractions. The moment you come back home, how quickly are you to do something? How quickly are you? When was the last time you gave yourself time to nurture yourself? Whether it's, you know, soaking, on a bubble bath or whatever, right? Spending time with your own thoughts and actually enjoying that time. And if you don't enjoy that time with yourself, well, that's a good audit too. Well, why aren't you having a good time with yourself? Because you don't like where you're at? Well, why? What is missing? And usually it's like, well, I want somebody. Well, are you codependent? Are you looking for happiness on the other side? Because if you are, chances are it's not going to happen. Excitement will always go down. How do you maintain that? By controlling yourself, right? By allowing yourself that happiness comes from yourself. Okay? So, best way, and this way you prevent yourself from being a victim. Okay? You're no longer this victim. Me energy. Me, right? And and so you're no longer being a victim, and you begin with accountability, right? So you start participating in your own rescue, right? And yeah, people will naturally come to you. People will naturally come. But it doesn't mean that like you don't say anything. Like there's still actions that's gonna be needed, right? Like if you're operating from a good place and you're happy, you're excited about life, people can sense that. And when you ask them certain questions, whether or not like you're in line at a Starbucks or you're at McDonald's, because Mitchell like McDonald's and McNuggets. Yeah, like when was the last time you were at a McDonald's and you're just so excited, like, and that person's in front of you and you're like, hey yo, what you about to get? You like chicken nuggets? Would you like to share some? I can't eat all 20, but I feel like buying 10 for like $3.99 is not worth it. Let me spend an extra dollar. You get the other 10. You let me know your favorite sauce. You take it away. You have a good day. All right. And you don't even need to know that person's name. Maybe you're attracted to that person. Oh well. But you're like, have these 10 nuggets, okay? Or you're at a Starbucks. What are you drinking? What's your favorite drink, right? Like that's type of the enthusiasm, the excitement that attracts a lot of people. Let's see. It's okay to feel fear. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Chevelin, that's true what you said, Mitchell. Thank you. I said a lot of things, so if you could reshare what I said, that would be great, Chevelin. Let's see. Connie, you said, I agree with you, Mitchell, on self-reflecting on our own thoughts. Just straight up journaling. Yeah. Journaling is if we need to write it down, write it out, writing goals for ourselves. Yeah, when difficult situations come our way. Yeah. It helps clear your mind a little bit, right? A clear mind is, it's very so this is what I enjoy. I like a clear space and I like a clear mind. And yeah, eventually, well, I know I'm off topic, but eventually this background will change a little bit. I will probably start doing lives on a computer. So yeah, I can't wait for that. I'm excited for that. But anyways, that's gonna happen within maybe hopefully a few months. Okay, I know I've been saying that a lot, but yeah, you're like, are you excited about life? Do you have things that you're looking forward to, right? No McDonald's is so bad for you. I won't even share it. No, I'm gonna eat it every now and then, not all the time, right? And now that I have this secret, not secret, just get some McDoubles and put Mac sauce. You got a Big Mac. You got a Big Mac. Who doesn't like Big Macs? Some people do. Mitchell does. All right. So let's see. So when you have experienced a loss, but say, okay. Yeah, when you self-reflect, it helps you prevent yourself from being this victim mentality, and you start, taking on this accountability, right? Spend quality time with yourself without distractions, because social media distractions, all this, it kind of takes you away from you understanding yourself. Okay. Now I do want to talk about codependency because the fear of being alone means usually it's because you don't have you don't really have a good relationship with yourself. So when you don't have a good relationship with yourself, you feel like happiness is dependent somewhere else, right? Oh, I need, or maybe even lying to yourself and you're saying like, hey, I need this person to kind of push, just motivate me just a little bit so that I could be a little bit happy. It's like, no, that's not going to happen. It has to start from you first. Okay. Now, codependency. Are you are you staying emotionally healthy by setting and enforcing uh healthy boundaries with yourself too, right? Maybe it's because you're giving away too much to a person that doesn't value or appreciate your time, right? And then you start feeling like, well, I need to be around somebody, or I need somebody in my life to make me happy, right? So you don't really set yourself healthy boundaries. So my thing is, once I got to a happy place on my own, I no longer really celebrate, oh, not celebrate. I no longer tolerate the people around me that takes it away, that makes me feel like I'm like less than, or like I don't want to be around somebody that's always like, is this person going to walk on eggshells? Is this person going to have a bad time again? They get mad. So when they get mad, everybody has a bad time. It's like, no, like I want to be around somebody that I know I can have a good time. And I get that things do happen, but that other, that person knows how to operate from a place that, you know what, when things do go bad, it's okay. I can figure it out. Or if not, don't worry, I got you. Tell me what's going on. Let's figure it out together, right? Like, wouldn't you want to be around somebody like that, right? Because I have friends and they don't always have a great time, and when they don't, I'm like, yo, let's sit down, man. Or yeah, let's sit down. Like, what's going on? What's in your mind? What are some of your thoughts? Talk to me. And then I just shut up and then listen, right? Let's see. I mean, being happy and completing yourself is the best because you attract a person who is in the same state. Absolutely, because you start vibrating at the same energy level, or same level of energy and the vibrations, right? Whether you want to believe it or not, but I believe it. And so when I start vibrating or jiving with this person, we understand each other, right? There's, whether it's chemistry or not, whatever, like I start understanding them, and I'm like, I want to be around them, and I understand, and it's like great. But if you don't vibrate with that person, or you don't jive with that person, then you're going to repel each other eventually. You're gonna be like, I don't want to be around that person. It's not a good, comfortable feeling, and it sucks when it becomes like someone that's really, really close to you, whether it's a really good friend or like a family or whatever, because it's like, and if it's family, it's like, well, you're never gonna disassociate yourself. The best thing that you can do is distance yourself, right? It's like, I just don't want to be around that. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It means that you're just protecting your own energy, and you got to do that. Because I feel that when you wake up every morning, depending on your night's rest or whatever, that there's only so much mental bandwidth that you have. And the moment you wake up and you hear like bad things happening, oh, guess what happened? Guess what happened? Read the news. Did you see what happened? It's like, oh shit, what now, right? Oh, this person got blah 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 on the bus, or this person's like, okay, okay. It's not that I don't care, but it's like, really, that's not the first thing I want to hear, right? But it's, or when you want to hear something like, hey, good morning, right? Hey, I got breakfast ready. Oh, thanks, baby. What you make? Right? Oh, and then you showing appreciation. Like, it goes back and forth, because love is an act. Love, love is about giving, right? So, or whoever, right? And if you could give yourself love, literally give yourself love. Okay? Yes, exactly what y'all thinking. Because this is what I liked about Julian himself. How can you give yourself that, right? And I know this is how do I say this? The example he gave was, your imagination will take its, but anyways, he used an example of like, let's just say that I almost don't want to say it, but this is not verbatim, but like based off what he gave an example, and like I see the analogy, right? And it's entertaining too, I guess. But he was talking about like like you gotta give yourself like that mental masturbation, or that masturbation, right? And it's like, well, I need this, I gotta get it, right? But the example that he used was like, well, how can I do it myself, right? Well, do you have hands? Okay, then. So if you could give yourself that, so same thing applies. It's like if you could make yourself happy without being happy, depending on another person, then you no longer need to be around somebody. You no longer codependent. You're not seeking happiness from another thing or another person, because you could give it to yourself. And so that's why he used the example of masturbation. And so anyways, I thought that was, funny, but it's also the analogy that he gave. It's like, how can you give it to yourself? All right? So, yeah. Take it how you like it, but it's, the moral of the story, don't get dirty minded, but it's like, how can you give it to yourself, honestly? How can you? And when you could give that to yourself, it comes from a great place, because you know that I don't need it. I could do it myself. I can do it myself. All right. So codependency. Let's see. I'm almost done though. I'm almost done. So let's see. Where does your mind wander when you're on your own? Okay. Where does your mind and action take you? Where does it take you when you're alone and you're thinking? Right? Do you constantly find yourself needing to be around somebody so you could feel less lonely? So like, look at the actions. So sometimes it's hard to think about what you do, but if you think about what you're doing, that reveals who you are as a person, right? Like that's what you do, that's what you go to, that's where your action, because you crave that in some way, shape, or form. So if you always constantly find yourself being like, what are some of the patterns? Like, okay, Mitchell, if you're whenever you get upset, you like to do X, Y, and Z, and when you do that, it doesn't really solve anything, but it also it just temporarily relieves that situation. But you keep doing it, it becomes a cycle. So okay, so if I did that, how can I change it so it doesn't become the cycle where I need to do that based off this thing that happened, this circumstance? You got to ask yourself. So like, whatever you're going through, like, you have to ask yourself that question, right? So then you look at the patterns in your life. What are your actions that you're doing based off a certain circumstance? So it's like, some people, whenever they get stressed, they're upset, right? They go out, they go to a bar and they drink until they numb themselves. If you are that person, well, is that really healthy for you? Probably not, right? It's not healthy for your health, and it's like, you could cause a lot of, like, maybe you're mad drunk or whatever, right? Like, okay, well, how do I not depend on that type of neediness, on like that I don't need this bar or beer or alcohol? What is a better way of approaching it so that I don't find myself always being upset, so that I don't have to keep going here? Those are really good questions, right? So where do you find yourself constantly, right? And where does your thoughts lead you to what kind of actions that you're doing, right? So I know this for myself. Whenever I find myself a little frustrated because, things happen, and when I'm a little upset, I notice that I like to go on YouTube, and I like to listen to, like, why I'm upset on that situation, or what can I learn, so that it's not that it distracts me, but it gives me a better focus. So my attention, instead of focusing on why I'm so mad, I'm more a little focused on, like, what can I learn? And that's what I find myself like when I'm upset. I like to maybe read a book, right? Get myself out of that zone. And I think it's healthy. I think it's healthy because now it doesn't mean I ignore that problem. It means that I'm not going to that problem right away, because I don't want to say something that I might regret later. But it puts me in a better mood too, right? It's how I get back to that centered state, so that I could go back to that argument or this place that I was feeling a little unstable or unhappy, and I could find a solution. So that's me. That's my example. I like to do that, or I like to dance, right? Something like that. Where do you find yourself leading up to that action. What do you do normally when you get mad, right? Ask yourself those type of questions. So, are you codependent? Really, you got to ask yourself as straight up as it is. Am I codependent? Do I need another person to make me happy, or do I need another thing to make me happy? And if you do, you really got to find out why. And no one could solve that for you unless you have a coach that's like talking to you and trying to figure out, well, then they can ask you quality questions, right? Unless you can ask the quality questions yourself, then it's good. But having a coach, it's important too, because then you could spot they could spot out certain things that you might not be able to see, right? Just like how the Golden State Warriors gonna win, right? Beat the Celtics. Yeah, the coach see things that players can't do sometimes, right? And here's another thing too, right? I do want to put a disclaimer that if you do need professional help, please seek it, right? You could Google certain things and numbers will pop up. And if you do need help, there are professionals out there, right? License, right? Certifications and all that great stuff. They'll be able to help you. And if you really do need it, don't feel bad about it, because hey, you know what? You're working on yourself. And if someone's gonna give you shit about that, it means that they feel like they're perfect. They feel like they're good enough, and let them be. That's their opinion about how they feel about themselves, right? So now, let's see. Do I have anything else that I want to talk about? Because I feel like Mitchell's been talking a lot as usual. All right, because no, I think this is good, right? Because am I codependent? Yeah, there was a time. So I already shared that example of me like not being codependent, but like, whenever I was upset, not feeling happy, and I felt like I didn't want to be alone, I went out and I tried to do things so, that I seek happiness from another person, right? It doesn't mean that like, hey, if you're feeling cooped up, it doesn't mean that you can't just go out, but it's how well you could adapt to certain things, right? Let's see. Time you spend. Okay, so I do want to end it with this, and I heard this from Julian himself, which was, time being spent on needing approval, because that's usually what happens when you're codependent, right? You need other people's approval, whether it's a friend, or the validation from a friend, or maybe you need validation even from your partner or whatever, right? Like if you're time being spent on needing approval, those time could be spent building up yourself. And I think that's as simple as it is, that's the core, because then you could, as you're building yourself up, like attracts like, and you become a better person. And once you become a better person, well, guess what? You're gonna attract that person. And when you attract that person, you're creating this good space, right? Life fills voids. And so if you're always in this negative mood, this negative mindset or whatever, you're going to attract that person into that little space that you created. And does it usually end well? Maybe, maybe not. Okay, but chances are it's not that great. But if you're happy and you're attracting this good, happy, healthy person into your life, well, life is going to fill that void for you, right? And that is going to attract that positive energy into your life. Let's see. Yes, I love that you mentioned a disclaimer. Some people need to not be ashamed to ask for professional help. Yeah, absolutely. A coach is good, right? Because they can spot certain things. But then like what a coach can't do unless they're licensed and stuff, they can't diagnose you. They can't be like, you have this or you have that, right? Because that, from what I believe, that takes a little bit more understanding, at least in a more scientific level, to actually be like, this is what you have based off some of the facts and stuff like that. So if you do need professional help, and you do need a therapist that could actually point out, hey, you might have this, and it's okay, because you're not alone, right? So I think don't feel ashamed. And if you feel like you can't do it alone, that's a great place to start. Or like try to listen to other people that might have been successful, right? Like try different things. But professionals, they're there for a reason. They're there to help you and treat you. for yourself and better. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that was today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed the fear of being alone, right? Fear of being alone. And what did we collectively thought, right? Happiness must come from you first, right? And once it comes from you first, you're gonna be a little bit more confident. You're not gonna be focused on like, oh, I'm gonna be fearful that I'm gonna be left alone. Like back then I was like, damn, like I would never, no one would ever like me. No one would ever want to be with me. Like that whole victim me mentality, me, right? But instead, I was like, you know what? Let me play to win instead of playing not to lose, right? But it starts from a place. Like it starts from, well, where are you at? If you're down here, you can't just jump up here all the way, right? It starts like, okay, there's levels to it, just levels. And once you pass that threshold, it goes with courage. But if you're like, let's just say you're in apathy and you're kind of like you're at this very low level, everything sucks, nothing in life will ever work, right? Then it's hard, it's very difficult to have any type of courage to do something, right? So there's levels to it. And I'll describe that a little bit more later. But that is the end of the show for today. I went over what, 16 minutes. So but yeah, that was fun today. Get to a happy place first. Are you happy? If you're not, you know come talk to me. Let's figure things out together, right? Let's figure things out together. But I do appreciate your time, everybody being here, right? uh who is that who's that third person? Because I see Chevlin and Connie, right? Who's that third person? um but yeah, until I'll see you guys on the next episode. I will post something up on Instagram story, so I want to hear what you guys have to say, maybe a new topic or something like that. Thank you, Mitchell, the birthday boy. Yeah, Sunday. So I'm celebrating with some friends too as well. So I can't wait. All right, I'll see you guys on the next episode. All right, you take care.